Hello, this is Amanda Malave, and today we're going to be walking through Chapter 6, Business Markets and Business Buying Behavior. So previously, we had a video on Chapters 1 through 5, and we actually went through the understanding of the marketplace and consumer needs and wants, and designing the overall marketing strategy. We also talked about how to do research and how to actually get a plan together for Zippies. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take chapter 5 and then go the next level. Chapter 5 was all about really understanding the black box and what a consumer behavior looks like and how to influence that so that they purchase your products and services. Today we're actually going to go towards the buyer consumer black box and their buying process. And all of this is going to help us in really determining who our target segment is and how we'll target to them in the future. And at the end of the day, the reason that we're all doing this is to capture value from customers, whether it's business or end-to-end consumers, through the capturing of profits and customer equity. Because at the end of the day, we're not doing anything other than to create relationships so we can create profits. So chapter 6 has 5 core objectives. One is defining the business market. The other one is defining the major factors that influence business buyer behavior. 3 is defining the steps in the business buying decision process. 6 is discuss how new information technologies and online, such as mobile and social media, have changed B2B or business to business marketing. And compare the institutional and government markets and explain how these institutions and government buyers make their decisions. So our example today is going to be a fun one, I hope, that you enjoy it as well, which is Pooches in Paradise. We obviously know that the market for Hawaii shirts, aloha shirts as they're called here, is really, really big. We also know that there's a huge, huge industry for dog products. So Pooches in Paradise was created by an owner so that she can sell custom-made shirts for Pooches and their owners. So this is Patty. Patty and her Pooch wear matching shirts all the time. So she thought, why wouldn't anybody else want this? So she wanted to start this company, Pooches in Paradise. So she has obvious buying behaviors because she now, after she set up this business, has to find where to manufacture, produce, and also help her market and distribute these shirts so that all these consumers that do want to purchase it can find it, whether it's in a store or online. She also has a buying process that she goes through, similar to consumers. It's based off of different products and services and things that she needs to evaluate among alternatives and brands. Let's start with objective number 1, which is to explain the different market differences between how a business market acts and a consumer market is. So the first thing we want to talk about is the market structure and demand. In a consumer market, there's millions and billions of consumers that are available. However, in the business market, it's a lot less buyers. So there's fewer but larger buyers of products that then sell to the end consumer. It's a derived demand, meaning that it's demand that is made up of consumers wanting to buy something. And therefore, there's a market, and therefore people are creating businesses to meet that market needs. It's usually inelastic, which means that prices don't affect the purchasing patterns in the long run. However, it's a fluctuating demand. It's a really finicky demand because end consumers are finicky. So the more changes that an end consumer has in their needs, wants, and desires, then the more changes that a business consumer will have. So it's very, very fluctuating. So let's take a look at what derived demand means. So Patty actually wants to distribute shirts for dog owners and their dogs. But in order to make a shirt, it needs to actually be created via cotton. Somebody needs to spin it, weave it, tailor it. And then Patty is, at the end of the day, is going to distribute the shirt to the end consumer. But this is a huge market. Well, how is this created? Well, the only way that it's created is by having end consumers, such as this customer, who loves to dress up in aloha shirts with his dog. So he is driving this need for this market. So, from that perspective, derived demand is created by the end consumer. So, let's take a look at the nature of a buying unit. So, Patty's company, just like any other business, whether it's large or small, are usually more complex in the way that they purchase. They also have a lot more decision makers, especially in a corporate environment. It's a more professional purchasing effort, and there's a lot more seller and buyer interaction. So the people that end up weaving or distributing or creating these shirts are going to have a lot more interaction with Patty on a day-to-day basis than you would with one consumer that comes into a store and buys from you one time. So the relationships are a lot deeper. So let's take a look at objective number 2, which is identifying the major influences that Patty would have or any business buyer would have in their behavior. So Patty has 3 ways to purchase. One is a straight rebuy. So she's found a supplier, she buys from them routinely, and she buys it without any modifications. If she changes suppliers, pricing terms, or even the specifications such as color or material, that's considered a modified rebuy. A new task is a buying situation where Patty decides she wants to produce a new product and therefore she's going to buy it for the first time, and so that's a new task. Again, if there's a target anywhere on the presentation, just make sure you really understand it for the exams and quizzes. So this might look familiar because we had a similar model for the consumer buyer. Now we're going to take a look at the business buyer behavior. So the business buyer behavior has a similar approach, which is that the buyer is in the center, and it's usually the black box of that buyer. So Patty, or a large organization, which could have a lot more influencers and people that are making that business buying decision, usually have the environment that's impacting them in their decision making process. So that's very similar to the consumer, which is the 4 P's, such as product, price, place, and promotion. Other stimuli are the macro and microeconomic factors, such as economics, technological, political, cultural, and competitive. And then, based off of their own buying decisions and their own needs, then they respond. And they respond by purchasing a product, selecting the supplier, ordering, setting up delivery terms and times, setting up service payments, and then just absolutely making payments and also accepting payments as well. So again, this is a very similar model to the consumer buyer behavior. Let's go into a little bit of a deeper dive into who the buying center is. With Patty, she's a small business. It would mostly be 1 or 2 people. But what if it's a larger corporation or a larger business? Well, it consists of a lot of different people and a lot of different business units. Usually there's a user. So in a large corporation, let's say that you need to buy a computer. Well, every employee is going to need a computer, but that each employee isn't going to go out and buy a computer on their own. There's going to be people or groups of purchasing unit that has a job of purchasing everything for that company. So there's influencers that are going to influence that purchasing unit on what type of computer to have. Sometimes it's the VP of IT, or it's a CEO, or someone that has influence within that group. There's also buyers, like we spoke about, that are purchasing departments that have the final authority or the formal authority to actually select the buyer. Then there's a decider. Deciders can be different than the buyer. Buyers may just be looking for suppliers, but then the decider gets to decide whether it's from a budget standpoint or the final decision maker. And last but not least, there's gatekeepers. Gatekeepers control the flow of information. So as you can see, when you are trying to sell to a big corporation or a corporation that has many decision makers, it can be very, very complex. And sometimes there's people who have veto power that you're not even aware of. So when you're selling to a B2B, it just really takes a lot more finesse and relationship building, not just for one person, but the overall company. So there's a lot of participants in the business buying process, as we know, but who participates in the decision? Well, it's usually based off of influence, evaluation of criteria, and then there's usually informal participants involved, as we discussed. But at the end of the day, let's talk about Patty. Patty has to actually purchase the end product for her small company. So she's got a lot of factors similar to a consumer. Part of that is environmental, which includes the economy, supply conditions, technology, some of her competitors, and her own culture and customs, especially the customs and culture of Hawaii. There's organizational factors, her objectives, her strategies, the way that she runs her business. She's got interpersonal influences, the way that she thinks, the way that she buys, her dynamics with suppliers, and her expertise level. Last but not least, she's got individual buying factors like her education level, her age, her position, her motives, her personality, her preferences, and her buying style. And at the end of the day, she gets to be the buyer for her end consumer. So let's take a look at environmental factors. There's many of them, of course, and some of them can be as simple as demand for the product. If there's no demand for the product, there's no demand for her to buy anything. She's also looking at what the economy looks like, the cost of money, how the dollar is against maybe other currencies, the types of supplies that she can get. She's going to use technology. So, for example, she could purchase from anyone in throughout the entire world. Her culture impacts the way she purchases. Politics and competition impact her as well. Organizational factors are internal factors that impact her, such as her own objectives. How much does she want to sell? How is she going to sell it? Is she going to be online? Is she going to have a brick and mortar store? What's her structure? How is she going to sell it? At these mom and pop stores, or is she going to sell at the ABC stores? And her systems and procedures. So those are all factors that are going to impact the way she purchases. Her interpersonal skills, such as the level of her expertise, her authority level. Maybe she's got a business partner or a bank that needs to approve before she can buy something that's a large expense. Maybe she's got other influencers that tell her, hey, the Chinese market and the Japanese market, they really like this color. So purchase from this person. And then any dynamics that she might have. She's also got economic factors such as price and service that she has out there in the market to her suppliers. So the pricing is going to impact her, and the level of service that she needs is going to impact her as well. And last but not least, she's got her emotions. All of these factors impact Patty and the way she purchases. How emotions influence B2B is really, really interesting because at the end of the day, it's much more relationship based. In B2B buying, emotions matter even more than logic and reason. So it's really, really relationship based. It's about how she sees personal value, how she sees the suppliers, and also how she wants to buy. And if a particular supplier can communicate to her how they're going to fix her issues. So again, it's a very, very personalized way of influencing a business buyer versus a consumer buyer, and much more complicated. So the person that's selling to a business buyer needs to really understand motives, perceptions, preferences, ages, income, education, and attitude towards risk, because all of those things will impact if Patty's going to buy from them. So let's take a look at the steps in the buying process from a business perspective. It's very, very similar to the buying process of a consumer. However, it's got a little bit more in as far as steps are concerned. The first step is that you recognize that you need a problem, such as I need to buy something. There's a general need, and then you create a product specification. You select a supplier. You go through a proposal process usually. Then you make a final selection of a supplier, and then you start buying routinely, or you do a modified buy, or you actually have to go start from the beginning if you have a new buying situation. And then usually if you're really, really advanced or really good at purchasing, you have a performance review where you actually look at everything you're buying and make sure that you're evaluating that you're getting the best deals. We're going to go a deeper dive into each one just to make sure you understand it. And the reason being is because in the exam, there's going to be a lot of business problems that you'll have to really identify each one of these steps. So let's say that Patty has a problem. The problem could be simulated by an internal stimuli or an external stimuli. In this case, Patty wants to start selling dog sunglasses. So this is a new task. So the business problem is that she has attended a trade show in California, and she sees that there's potential for her to sell doggy glasses to both the dog and its owner. So this is a new task. This would be considered a new problem recognition. So anytime that you have to start all over, it starts at the problem recognition stage. So then she is going to identify the general needs for the sunglasses. She's going to start putting in technical requirements, and she's going to start looking for ways that she can reduce her cost or standardize her design, and start looking for ways where she's either going to produce it or find a supplier. So she starts looking for suppliers because obviously she's not going to go and produce it herself. So she goes to Alibaba. Alibaba is an online platform which really allows small businesses to purchase products at a lower cost from anywhere around the world. So she went to Alibaba and found many, many thousands, as a matter of fact, 516 suppliers. So she sends out her proposal, and the suppliers come back and tell her what the end pricing is going to be. So she qualifies the suppliers, and then she finally decides on a specific supplier. She's going to go with wholesale multicolor protective sunglasses because they provide a lot more selection, and she can grow with them. And she's going to go purchase it through Alibaba. So from there, she's going to order routinely, and she's going to conduct performance reviews. So she goes on and decides that, yes, the supplier's been doing a great job, but then all of a sudden, she finds that her consumers are starting to complain about it scratching very easy, and that the glasses are falling off of the dog's faces, and that they're not fitting as well as that she wants them to fit. So from that perspective, she does a performance review of her suppliers, and she identifies that 50% of all of the product that's coming in has got some sort of spec that it's not tight enough for the dogs. So that's the performance review process. So now she's identified that there's a problem. So she has to start all over again at the problem recognition process. Well, she'll then go through all the steps, including potentially ordering from another supplier or modifying the buy from our current supplier. Now that we've talked about the business decision process and how a business makes that final decision all the way through the review process, let's discuss how technology and online and social media have changed B2B marketing. Again, e-procurement and online purchasing is huge. What it's done is that it allows small companies like Pooches in Paradise to purchase online, compare buying sites, and use extranets. So everyone has the right to either be a supplier and purchase and sell from wherever they are around the world. And then business consumers can purchase from around the world as well. What this does is it lowers prices. So it's a really, really great process. But there's some disadvantages to it as well, and advantages. The advantages are that you can access new suppliers and new products very quickly. It's lower cost. There's a lot of speed to it. It enhances information sharing, and it improves sales. And usually, if there's more competition, there's better service and support. However, the disadvantages are that, usually Patty would be buying from somebody face to face. But now that you were using Alibaba, it can get a little bit more eroded, the relationships between the buyer and suppliers. So that could have a disadvantage, because a lot of times when you have great supplier relationships, you can also get better results, better pricing, or better service. So the last objectives is let's take a look at institutional and government markets and how they buy. Institution and governments are really, really interesting. It consists of schools and hospitals and nursing homes and prisons, and they usually have lower budgets. And they usually have a very systematic and even very policy-based way that they have to purchase. And they have a lot of rules, especially if it's government-based. From a government perspective, they are also impacted by environmental factors, but also by non-economic factors. So when you're selling to a government entity or an institutional entity, you also have to meet their regulations. So the government, in order to support small businesses, they will put laws in place that you have to purchase a certain amount of products from minorities or depressed firms or small businesses. So that's also a factor that impacts the way that institutions and governments purchase. So what we learned today was three things. We really went through a simple model of B2B buying behavior. We went through the overall buying process. And then last but not least, we talked about institutions and government purchasing processes. So the next step is that you need to finish all your homework for Chapter 6. Please, please don't forget the ethics assignments. There's 2 parts to it. Remember, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then you'll need to finish Chapter 7 for week 2. Mahalo, and thank you for listening. And until the next time.